Tony, the community went to great lengths to try to save this school. And they're not a wealthy community. Why do you think they did that?
They valued the school. They owned the school. They were part of the school. They see Phillipstown as meeting their children's needs, and it's a school that delivers what the community want.
So how good was the school doing? I mean, was your roll rising? What was the performance of the students?
Well, there were a lot of measures. Firstly, the parents told us that they were pleased with what the children were achieving. But academically and statistically, our results, we're really proud of them. Our general roll in 2012 was achieving at the national standard in reading at, I think, 76%. But more than that, the Maori boys were 80%. The Maori girls were something like 85%. And the Pasifika children were 100%. So we're very proud.
That was one of the things in 1989, wasn't it? The involvement of the community was going to improve the outcomes for children, and that's what happened here.
So we developed a model to respond exactly to that call. And over the years, the Phillipstown model has evolved into a very comprehensive wraparound model where we provided that support to the children that were identified, and we got the children from where they were to where we needed them to go.
Being a school in a lower socioeconomic area, how is it different for being a school in a wealthy area? What do you have to do for the kids here that wealthy schools don't have?
You have to cover more ground. You have to work smartly with your community. And the recipe that we've got together here is that we involve the wider community. So it was agencies, it was organisations, it was ex-pupils. It was a community-owned school that had a say, and we listened to them. And so they felt that it's not my school, it was their school. And I think we got it right.
So how do you feel about this decision, just in terms of an educator and having to deal with the minister who seems to have a completely different view about what a school should be?
Very disappointed and saddened to the core, because it's almost like your boss not valuing what you're doing. So there's a tension there that we've been told by so many people that what we deliver at Phillipstown is valued and appreciated, but there just seems to be a contradiction going on here.
I mean, people who don't know Christchurch particularly well will say, well, look, your school suffered some damage and, you know, the population's moving. This was the minister's viewpoint. Population movement, damage to the school. Doesn't it make sense to put schools together?
No, it doesn't. The timing is the thing that's totally wrong here. The demographics were not even settled. And one could say it was disaster opportunism at the wrong time. When we were recovering, we were being smashed and our community was being destroyed. And we just couldn't understand that, because international experience tells us after a major disaster, you don't change something that hasn't settled. The demographics were moving constantly. We were dealing with that.
So what does this tell you about the economics of education and the way the ministry sees economics? Is it about buildings and cost effectiveness? Talk to me about that.
Well, I think we haven't learned from the past reviews in New Zealand. We haven't taken the past as an important learning tool and applied that knowledge to the current situation. I think that's the key thing here. The economics are seriously concerning me, because I think we're wasting money. And I think the New Zealand taxpayer needs to know that we're not on the right track here.
So what is the right track?
I seriously believe in a multi-party education plan for the next 20 years. And I believe that that's got to have the key stakeholders around the table owning the direction of education. and that it's got to be unified so that we're not throwing money that people so dearly value and wasting it, because I can see evidence from the past that we haven't learned.
What about national standards and testing? I mean, what does that tell you about how good your teachers are?
I question whether it's going to tell us how good our teachers are. I think the real focus should be developing professional capacity, developing the teachers. And in fact, the Finnish model focuses on that. So national standards worry me. It's fine to have national standards as such, but it's how they're used. And if they're used in a negative way, well then I'm certainly not in favour of that.
One of the things I thought we got right in 1989 was the idea that the community should be more involved and that was going to be valuable. But what I see in your school is exact opposite to that. Here we've got a community that wants to be involved but can't be involved. Right. Did you see an irony in that?
Oh, absolutely. The community knows best. The community identify with their local school. And if they're part of that local school, they contribute to it in many, many ways. And we've struck a model here that relies heavily on the community being valued and their input. And what we've managed to achieve at Phillipstown is quite sensational results, but the provision of resources, and it's not costing the government.
Do you think the kids from here are going to just migrate down to Woolston School as the ministry seems to think? I mean, you can just move people around and that'll be fine?
No, you can't, because parents are making choices themselves. They know what's best for their children. And yes, there will be some children that go to the merged school, but where our information today is that they're going to the four winds. They're going everywhere.
So parents were choosing this school because of the kind of model that you had, the wraparound model. How do we measure a school like yours? I mean, do we measure it through testing the children? How do we measure a school that's doing well in a lower socio-economic area? How do we measure the teachers?
You use a range of tools. You don't just focus on a narrow band of academic tests. You use a range of tools. That includes teachers, parents, working together, looking across a wide range of subjects to develop the whole child, not just a narrow band. You don't constantly test unless there's a real purpose to it and that you have a very clear reason for testing children. That would be my greatest concern, that we're far too narrow. We're not looking at the whole child.
What is the relationship these days between the Board of Trustees and a principal like yourself and the ministry? And what should it be?
It could be better. The ministry know that they're not doing well. And there's a lot of work to be done there. And the recent review of the ministry themselves would indicate that their performance is very, very low. You must strike a partnership between boards and the ministry that values people's input, that keeps experienced people in the system, that has ownership.
Because that's what strikes me at the moment. The ministry seems to be alienating the communities and alienating the boards of trustees who feel that, whatever they say or do doesn't really count. Would that be your experience?
Oh yes, as I speak to more people that have been involved in network reviews around the country, I'm hearing the same message, that we were not listened to. We're being fed a line, that the decisions made in places like Wairoa, Invercargill, Masterton didn't hit it right. They got it wrong.
I mean, everybody understands money and they know that education's expensive. Talk to me about two things. One is the importance of spending on education and also the amount of money the community puts in, hard cash.
I really feel that if you invest smartly now, you'll avoid paying dearly in the future. And investing smartly now means that the key stakeholders have got a say and they're listened to. And the value of education, is promoted very highly, and the community are contributing more and more if they feel they can see their dollar being wisely allocated.
So you get a lot of support even from a poor community?
A tremendous amount of support in both hard cash terms, but in all sorts of other areas. What we've been able to achieve at Phillipstown is to involve people, to engage people, and that spreads to ex-pupils, owners of local businesses, because everyone wants their school to succeed, and especially at Phillipstown.
What do we need to know as parents? What do we need to know as boards of governors who are charged with the responsibility of teaching our children? What do we need to know from your experience?
You need to know that the model you work with involves the key stakeholders, that the local voice is listened to, that people are actively engaged and valued in the education of their children. You need to know what you're aiming for. What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve a holistic education where you take the child from where they are at whatever level and move them up? Or are you going to give some sort of standard that they have to aspire to, but they haven't got the support or the wraparound care to even address their immediate needs?
You see, I sometimes look at what we're doing here at the moment generally and think we're trying to turn out a product rather than a person. And a person is much more complicated than a product. I mean, it's like a consumer model of education that says, well, you know, it's going to have a brand value and it's going to have this amount to it. I mean, how do you see our view of education today? I mean, what do we need to fix?
I think we need a major review of education and the direction we're taking. And I think that we need to sit down and say, well, what do we want to achieve here? And what's good practice? And I think we need to learn from what's being found out and discovered internationally. And I think that at Phillipstown we can learn because it's been evolving over many, many years. I really just want to say it's not rocket science. It's quite simple. If a child is hungry, you feed them. If a child can't see, you give them glasses. If a child needs additional support in their learning, you look at ways to maximise that and to very, very carefully use the dollar that we have been given.